Good evening, morning, whatever it is for you, gearheads. How is everybody? We're getting ready for the Australian Grand Prix. I kind of like this time zone.
What do you mean you like this time zone?
I do. I like it in a way because it was nice to be able to see the prep that's happening right before the race rather than wake up to it. My name is John Massengale. I'm sitting in the studio in Austin, Texas, and I'm joined in the studio by Jonathan Green.
Hey, that's me.
And we've got Bob Varsha over Zoom. Bob, how are you, my friend?
I'm tired. How are you?
But I like the stylish Harry Styles haircut.
Yeah, thank you. It's it's one of life's lessons. Don't get your hair cut just because you're desperate. From some guy who said he learned to cut hair at the New York City Police Department.
Yeah.
Better that than Rikers Island, I suppose. But yeah, it's growing on me.
I go to John's sister. I don't know if that's good or bad.
No kidding.
We both have the same
I'll
hair.
have to check that out.
Yeah, it's probably not worth driving.
That's actually how I find out what's up with John, you know?
She going to be in Miami with us? I might need one by then.
Okay. Yeah, I highly recommend her.
She will probably not. Well, boys, we got a lot to talk about here.
Wow, and how?
Yep, there has been plenty going on, and we're going to get into all of it. We've got, plenty to talk about from qualifying. We've got really one of my favorite things to talk about is how close the racing is. We got tons of that. So just settle in, grab yourself a cup of coffee or something nice and warm to drink, and we're going to get into all of it. And I think I want to start off with talking about just Australia in general because, Jonathan, you've been there a few times.
I have been there a time or two. In fact, I went to the first one in '96, I think, and interviewed Andrew, what's his name? Andrew Waitling, I think it is, who's been pretty much the MD of the Australian Grand Prix to much success. There was huge consternation when it first came out because it's so close to the central business district and because the Australians, perhaps more than many countries in the world, are so into, making sure that the climate's right, making sure that, there isn't pollution and being very, very proactive on all sides of things. You can see from the overhead shots, you're right by the beach, you're right down in the center, and it's in a park. The turn 3 is a cricket ground just over behind there.
Yeah, it's Albert Park, but
Albert
it's
Park.
actually a park.
It is actually a park. And so there was a lot of demonstrations. There was a lot of people against it, thinking that it would be ruinous. And it hasn't been. It's been a huge economic success and has been one of the most popular Grand Prix. Remember, on the back of Adelaide, which was always the last Grand Prix of the year, Bob will back me up here, and actually was like the fun time for the people involved in Formula One because it was the last race of the year. And so they would all go down to Australia, get the brass race done and all relax and go on holiday.
Yeah, so, Andrew Westacott is
that's
the
the
guy.
That's the man, Andrew Westacott. Interviewed him on the first time he did it, and he's still there.
Yeah, well, he's stepping down in June, apparently. And he's the guy who's going out the door saying that what do they call it? The Australian Grand Prix Corporation, I guess.
That's the one,
needs to be reminded. He thinks it ought to become a night race in the future to benefit, the big TV audiences in Europe. But boy, that is biting off a chunk to illuminate a temporary circuit like this. They do it in Singapore, but those guys have most of the money in the world, so it would be a real challenge. I think it'd be spectacular, but it would be a challenge.
Yeah, I interviewed Westacott when he first got the job, and then I interviewed him again the year or 2011 when I was down there again about Circuit of the Americas and saying, what does it take? What are the pitfalls? And he was very, very gracious, and he has been unbelievably successful. I mean, you can imagine what was on his shoulders during the COVID, calling it off on Friday night. That was his decision with Formula One.
Yeah.
But I mean, gosh, the vitriol he must have got.
Yeah, that was
going out in front of all those people who were gathered for first practice saying,
go home. I know, terrible.
I can't imagine.
And they do it so well. You can take basically what's great about it, because it's central, you can park miles away and get the train, a bit like London. You can get the train in, and it's a fantastic atmosphere. There's people from all over the world singing and cheering, all going to the Grand Prix, and they're talking 400,000. So I wish, and it will happen one day, I wish Austin would get to that point where we have our train system that goes to the airport, and then the last stop, if you like, is Kota, because it would make such a difference.
We had it almost this past year because
Yep.
they fixed the transportation problem the last time, dude.
Yeah, I
If
don't
you
mean that. I
recall,
mean trains.
because-
Sorry, I meant trains.
Well,
so hopefully it'll go.
I know,
out there.
I knew that, but they had 600 shuttle buses last time. Yeah, a train would be amazing. But Austin definitely
Yeah,
figured it
definitely.
out, you know,
Yeah.
on a temporary basis
Yeah.
because that problem
And
was
widening the
solved.
roads, all that kind of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got an easy
Yeah.
run compared to a central business district.
Yeah. Hey, Bob, you
Right.
know, I was thinking about what you said about lighting up Australia and Melbourne circuit because I was actually talking to a guy who is in the lighting business recently, and he talks about LED lighting and how it's
Yep.
cheaper to do these big facilities than it used to be. So maybe that's part of it because
Well.
it is a pretty dramatic difference. So who knows? Maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I'm just, concerned because Australia is like most big racetracks, big events. There were lean years, there were financial difficulties along the way, and you got to remember uh, making that kind of investment, which the Australians seem happy to do. I think their latest contract negotiations have them keeping this race out to 2037,
Yeah.
which is a long time. So they'll be, making it better and better. And while we're on the subject of crowds, as Jonathan alluded to, 400,000 plus people this weekend. You see, the Friday crowds were incredible, covering the hillside
132,000, something like that, Bob?
Yeah. to watch practice. Yee.
I know, unbelievable. I've been really impressed, and I think COVID's playing a big part of everybody coming back. I mean, again, Bob, the two big international events that have, the three big international events that have kept Melbourne on the map have been the Olympics when they had it, which was a huge success. Obviously, the Australian Open tennis, which is in January, February, and this Formula One event. Moving it to March. Not
sent you a
sure,
tweet.
but either way, those are the big events. And then you've got, obviously, the Australians are mad sport people anyway, so they've got Aussie football and rugby, et cetera, cricket,
and
you name
rugby
it.
and all that
But
stuff,
those are the big international crowds where the sort of, where the Asians go and where the international folk come. And so it's a chance for Melbourne. It's a long way. It's a bit like Auckland, it's a long way to go, but it's a modern city and it wants to show itself off. And I think Melbourne's done an admirable job of that over the years.
Yeah, I miss going to Melbourne. I've never been. All of my Australian Grand Prix were in Adelaide.
Yeah.
Back in the old days. So I've never actually seen this Melbourne venue up close and personal, if you will, and I'd really like to see it. And I'll go to Australia at the drop of a hat. Those are really, really great people.
Yeah, the prediction I heard him say on may have been Friday, but they said 460,000. If they do that, that'll break the all-time record that Coda set last year at 440. So
Wow.
that is these numbers are staggering, aren't they? I
They are,
just-
absolutely.
You know,
Yeah,
I was out
they
at
really
Coda.
are.
I was out at Coda for NASCAR, and NASCAR gets a decent crowd, like 50, 60,000, and it felt like a little tiny event compared to F1. I mean, it was
Yeah.
the contrast was stark. It was really amazing the difference how Formula One just dwarfs that event, even though it's 50, 60,000 people, maybe more. I don't know the real numbers.
By the way, just another footnote. Albert Park, what I was talking about in the 90s was a reiteration of the Grand Prix, because the first one was at Albert Park in 1953. So it's not something that they reinstated it effectively.
Yeah.
They used to race at Phillip Island as well, or around the streets of Phillip Island, and then they built a track.
Well, let's talk some racing, boys.
Okay.
And we got Max Verstappen on pole.
Who?
But you know what? Not all is well at Red Bull. Mr.
Not all is
Perez
well,
would
but he's
argue, wouldn't he?
Yeah, and also Mr. Verstappen. And I was very, very interested in how both Verstappen and Christian Horner dealt with the questions that they were asked, certainly by F1 Pro. You tell me what you saw on Sky, but they totally, the downshifting issue that he was belly aching about and has been now for 3 races could be connected to Checo's problem as well. And
Yeah.
he goes, "Oh, just fine tweaks and nothing wrong." They did not want to go there.
Yeah. Well, Checo in his interview just flat out said it. He said, "I can't talk about it,
Yeah,
but we're going to get it fixed overnight." And
Yeah,
he,
right.
when they didn't, he was acting like it was nothing. But I mean, Checo, how many times did he go off? This is not a driver error. It's just too much, isn't it?
Well, what they were saying is that when the downshifts are taking place, there is, even in a modern car, a sense of engine braking. And anybody jump in if you can correct me, but I got this out of what Coulthard said, was that there is, if you can't shift down exactly where you want to when you hit that paddle, and there is a delay,
Yeah.
the car will not react to your input as well. And that can, as you saw, Verstappen going wide at 13 in
Oh,
one
sure.
of his
Yeah.
pre-laps. And then Checo 5 times now. And I think this is really the real, it's not like he outbrakes himself. It's very unusual to do that at 3, especially for Checo. And for 5
Yeah.
times, come on, he doesn't make that kind of mistake. So, there's definitely something wrong, and they are keeping stum.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenon we see a lot in Formula E too,
Okay.
because they rely very heavily on that. I mean, we call it engine braking, and to some extent it is, but to
Regen.
an even larger extent, it's recharging. It's
Right.
harvesting
Harvesting.
energy to go back in the battery. The car slows very differently when the driver just lifts off, and the electric motor begins working as a generator, pumping electricity, pumping energy back into the battery. It slows differently with that sort of quote unquote engine braking, generator braking, than it does when the driver steps on the pedal. And I think that's one of the toughest things for drivers to learn when they come to all electric Formula E. And I'm sure it's a big part of what the drivers in this hybrid area of Formula One are having to deal with as well.
Well, you just think of the complexity. Used to be braking was simple, and even anti-lock braking was simple compared to this. But now,
Yeah.
and that's been one of the biggest challenges with electric road cars too, is to get that brake feel right, because you got 2 systems working at the same time. You've got the
Mhm.
mechanical braking and you got the regen going on. So it's crazy complex.
Right. Yep.
So before we go
Yeah, it
on,
takes
can
getting
I?
used to.
That's it, Bob. Before we go on, I don't want to change subjects, but could you just turn your head to the left? That's it. Oh gosh, I almost
Why?
thought you'd. Well, I thought you'd gone for a Bottas.
You're checking.
I thought you'd gone for a. I'm watching Bottas on TV, and I suddenly thought that's what he's done.
Said Bob got a mullet, you thought?
I was thinking that. Oh, he could rock it.
Definitely Bob could
Oh,
rock
heck
a
yeah.
mullet.
Yeah, you should have seen me in college.
Oh dear.
Well, there was all this talk about Checo after, having a great couple of races, right? That he was such a great road course guy that he could be going into all these road circuits,
Yeah.
and fighting for the championship. And here he is now, starting from the back.
It's not good, is it?
Yeah.
Especially with the record of
Breaking
1-2 that they've got.
Breaking news: Checo's starting from the pit lane, as is Bottas.
Yep. I wrote
They
that down
apparently-
to confirm it. I saw it about an hour ago, and yes.
Yeah.
So
They
we've
went to
only
work
got
on the
18
cars
cars
and
starting
parked
on the
today.
grid.
Well, I'm going on board
Yeah.
with Checo on my app.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, before we get too far off of Checo, where's he going to finish this race now that he's starting from pit lane?
Well, so okay.
Is he going to finish in the
Verstappen started
points? and start
17th.
there?
What? No, it was 14th. Was it last time? And
No, it was further back. I think it was like
What Verstappen
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Saudi?
yeah, to come
was-
second.
He was 15th.
That's
wasn't
it.
he?
Yeah.
15th. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah, if he gets a good start, listen, I am convinced there's going to be some schmozzles, as David
Yeah.
Hobbs would say, because I really do think that, given that we watched F2 and F3, not that that's a comparison, but I think that the changes to the track, the cooler conditions, the tires not getting up to temperature, the fact that they've changed the rules on the tire warmers and so on, I think that we're gonna see a few mistakes, and I do think that if Checo keeps his nose clean, and he is good at that, as is Verstappen, then there's no reason why he can't not necessarily get to second, but there's no reason why he can't score points. And he said that in his interview. I can score points from where I am.
Yeah, I have
He's
no
got.
doubt.
You got the best car on the grid.
Yeah.
You've got 4 DRS zones to blow by people. Yeah, I think Checo's going to make time.
Yeah, but are we thinking top 5? Like the last time when Max started at 15, we were going, he's going to win. Do we think Checo's top 5?
Yeah, I do. I actually think he'll.
Yeah, I think he. Yeah, I think he could be top 5.
I think that is a reasonable assumption. All right, we're going to take a break, but before we do, word from our sponsor, CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike presents Driven in 60 as the official cybersecurity partner of the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team. CrowdStrike protects against cyber threats so the team can focus on what matters, their next win. The revolutionary cloud-native unified CrowdStrike Falcon platform harnesses the speed and power of the cloud to protect and defend organizations of all sizes against increasingly complex threats, stopping breaches before they happen. Because on and off the track, the stakes couldn't be higher. A split second can make the difference between victory and defeat. When every second counts, protection shouldn't slow you down. It should fuel your momentum. CrowdStrike, protection at every turn. To learn more and to try CrowdStrike Falcon free today, visit crowdstrike.com/XM. All right, we'll be back after these messages, and we'll get you a little bit closer to the Australian Grand Prix. All right, we are still live on the YouTubes and the Facebooks. They got some comments on here. Kevin Kelly says your haircut sucks, Bob, but I think he's joking. He has lots of LOLs. So many of these emoticons that I can't even recognize.
It's a good haircut.
No, I like it.
Yeah, come on.
Andy P's here. Hey, Andy P. He says Saturday night's all right for fighting and for F1. Love the Aussie atmosphere, don't we all, Andy? Just wish this was race 1, but I'll take it. Kevin Kelly has started the Black Helicopter crew. He says, was Checo sabotaged?
No.
Derek just jumped on. Derek Milo says, I'm looking at the second row. There's been too much history between Ham and Alonso since 2007. Yeah.
That's true.
A little spicy. We'll take that. Yeah, we got lots to talk about, guys. They're
happy to get elbows out, both of them.
Yep. Bob, you want to do the grid coming out of this break, or you want to do it the next one?
We can do it whenever you want.
Well, what the heck? Let's do it next.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's get into it. Because the last time I was thinking there was some reason I wanted to do it before the halfway point. I don't remember what it was, but let's try it and see how it works.
Okay.
Oh, I'm not on Facebook. I don't know if anybody's talking to us over there. Just watching the YouTubes. We got lots of good stories in here, guys, besides what's on the track. So maybe we'll save that for the 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. Austin time discussion, the post-race. Let's see. How much time we got, Casey? Here we go.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
I want to give a big shout out to the F1 watch party out there in San Francisco. They have 300 plus folks. And they said they had to split it between 2 bars or whatever they are.
My kind of night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know they've
done.
I think that's your buddy Peter out there, isn't it?
Yeah, Peter Harbeck.
Yeah, I forgot that. I actually retweeted them tonight going, hey, other cities, Austin, step up, man. We need to get our game up, you know? It's like, come on. It's like, hello, Austin, Miami, and Vegas for sure.
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Come on, man. I'm serious. No joke.
Yeah, of course, it's only 20 after 10 out there.
I know.
That is party time.
I thought about that. Vegas and Frisco are a little bit better, a little more friendly time zones than you, Bob.
Yeah. Well, let's see how many of them are listening in to our post-race show.
A reminder,
Yeah.
Velocity Invitational, absolute plug for myself, but actually the event just outside of San Francisco.
When's that coming up?
That's coming up in October, but more importantly, it's the 60th anniversary of McLaren, and Zach Brown and team will be there.
If you don't know about that event, Google that. It is
great
an
event.
amazing event. I've not been, but because I just know you talking about it, but I want to go really bad. All right, Bob, you
Is
want
Zach bringing any of his toys?
Yes, he is. Absolutely, he is.
Okay.
Several of his
He
toys.
always does.
And his team, too.
Mr.
Oh,
Varsha, you
wow.
want to get us through the grid here? And let's
Sure.
let's see what we got and get some discussion going.
All right, let's rock. On the pole, Max Verstappen. Who else? For Red Bull, 22nd career pole, one short of tying Fernando Alonso's career total. And the first for Red Bull since Sebastian Vettel's final title season in 2013. And that is at Australia, of course. It's a Dutchman's seventh start in Melbourne. He's led only 2 laps in his history here. He's never won, and of course, retired from last year's race, all of which means absolutely nothing because this guy's been cleaning up the floor with everybody. Next to it, George Russell for Mercedes. What a shock. The Silver
Nice.
Arrows have clawed back the performance gap to the front. Russell's on the front row for the 7th time in his career, and more importantly, has out-qualified teammate Lewis Hamilton 3-0 this season.
That's
On
amazing.
row 2, the aforementioned Lewis Hamilton in the second Mercedes, missing out on his chance to become the first driver with 9 poles at a single track. Nobody's ever done that. But it is Sir 7 times first top 6 start of 2023, and he hopes to run a lap in the top 4 for the first time this year in Melbourne. Next to him, Fernando Alonso. Nothing but smiles from Freddie for Aston Martin, 3rd in the driver standings. He has his first top 10 start in Melbourne since 2014, but no one has won from outside the top 3 on the grid in Melbourne in a decade.
Wow.
On row 3, Carlos Sainz, P5 for Ferrari, his best ever start down under, and the first time he's out-qualified his teammate this season. Next to him, in P6, Lance Stroll in the second Aston Martin, the first time the Canadian has reached Q3 in Oz. More proof, if any was needed, that the Astons are for real. On row 4, P7, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, pole sitter and race winner here a year ago, but 7th is his worst grid position in Albert Park since his F1 debut here in 2018. P8, Alex Albon. What a shock in Williams by any metric. The best performance for a Williams in any Grand Prix since 2021, and
that's amazing.
Albon's first Q3 appearance in nearly a year, only his second since joining Williams at the beginning of 2022. Great job.
Yeah.
On to road number 5, P9, Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. Another driver making a step up in qualifying. Gasly reached Q3 in Melbourne for the first time in his career. P10, Nico Hülkenberg, another great drive in the Haas. Called the Hulk a perfect 10, as I'm sure most of you ladies out there probably do already, because the German starts 10th for the 3rd straight race, but he has yet to score a point this year. On to row 6, P11, Esteban Ocon in the Alpine. By just 7,000ths of a second, the Frenchman ends his streak of 5 straight Q3 appearances, but BWT Alpine are in the midst of the midfield fight. P12, Yuki Tsunoda for AlphaTauri, one of several drivers to spin during practice, including poleman Verstappen. The team is said to be considering a name change. Is anyone else wondering whether a power unit supplier change is also in their future?
Oh.
On to 7, P13, Lando Norris. I'm not, starting rumors. I'm just putting it out there, as they say. Lando Norris starts P13 for McLaren. Team founder Bruce was an Antipodean from New Zealand, so the papaya cars are the crowd darlings, but boy, the crowd was disappointed in qualifying. Next to Lando, P14, Kevin Magnussen and the Haas, another driver out-qualified 3-0 by his teammate Hülkenberg. It was here in Albert Park that K-Mag finished on the podium in his Formula One debut in a McLaren back in 2014. On row 8, P15, Nick DeVries for AlphaTauri, advanced to Q2 for the first time this season. Another driver who has yet to out-qualify his teammate Tsunoda. The Dutchman joins Hülkenberg and Oscar Piastri as the only drivers yet to complete a lap during a race in the top 10.
Quiet start for him, yeah.
Yeah, Oscar Piastri in the other McLaren. Speak of the devil, the Australian rookie gets a huge ovation from the crowd whenever he shows up on track, but the McLarens 4th and 7th on the grid here last year So what they've got now is obviously a big disappointment. Row 9, P17, Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo, the worst qualifying performance of the season for the two Alphas, neither one making it out of Q1 using the same Ferrari drivetrain as the factory boys and the Moneytron Haas cars. Figure that one out. P18, Logan Sargent of the United States of America in the Williams, out in Q1 for the third time. The American rookie was not as close to advancing to Q2 here as he was in Bahrain and Jeddah, but he's 2 places higher than his teammate Albon was last year when Albon managed to score a point in 10th place. So go get him, Logan. And then row 10, both of whom will start from pit lane. Valtteri Bottas for Alfa Romeo, who won this race for Mercedes 4 short years ago. But Melbourne is also where the Finn series record streak of 103 consecutive Q3 appearances ended last year. Alfa's worst ever qualifying under any name in 26 races in the Australian Grand Prix. And also from the pit lane, Sergio Perez for Red Bull, who has had an absolutely horrible weekend, all kinds of problems trying to get the car under him on Saturday, skidding off in qualifying, complaining of a brake issue. The Mexican has it all to do if he's to score a 4th straight podium finish for the first time in his career, and he has the best car on the grid to do it with. So good luck to him.
Man, there is a lot to unpack there. I'm going to start with just what you just talked about, Sergio Perez, because technically he's outside 107% and could potentially have, they said you can't race. But obviously that's not going to happen because that's at the steward's discretion.
That's right. And he did win the most previous Grand Prix on the schedule. Yeah, that's the 107% rule harkens back to those days when I started doing Formula One. You would have like 36 cars show up for a race. So we had to conduct pre-qualifying, as it was known. You had to get out there at 7 a.m. on Friday to have a race among 6 or 8 cars to see which 4 would advance to regular practice and qualifying. And along came the 107% rule. But there's no way that the stewards would not allow Perez to start the race.
All right, well, let's start back at the top. Let's talk about Max Verstappen. I mean, Johnny Green, you think this is just a foregone conclusion that he wins this race?
No. Especially when you look at the fact that there are 11 world titles on the first 2 rows, including his too. Right. I mean, when you've got the company and you've got what I would consider one of the best up-and-coming drivers alongside him, I think Mercedes have a plan that is to absolutely hound Verstappen in the opening 10 laps.
Toto says they're done. They're done for the season. Toto Wolff said that they're
second off, right?
Yeah.
Second off, yeah. Suddenly they're bounced back. No fins or no panels, no whatever. But the bottom line is, I think my plan, if I were Toto, would be go. You, Russell, you be the hare, beat him into for turn 1. It's a right-hander anyway. Force him wide. Hamilton goes out to the outside. I don't know what the tactics are, but my point is you've got him sitting there, and he has to make an unbelievable start. And I think that's where this race could be won and lost for Mercedes.
Yeah, and you haven't mentioned something that's occurring to me with Red Bull right now is with Verstappen potentially not winning, and that's reliability.
Yeah, absolutely. Achilles heel, potentially, yeah.
Yeah, that's the other reason. All right, let's talk about, Bob, what do you think about these Mercedes? I mean, they looked pretty good in Saudi after Toto Wolff, like I was saying the sky is falling, and now they look really good.
You know, it's really fascinating following all the things that Mercedes is saying and doing. As you said, Toto Wolff saying, "Oh, it's hopeless. We have no chance. This is going to take a while." Lewis Hamilton saying, "It'll take years for us to get back. I can't feel the car." I don't believe a word of it.
Yeah, I don't. You can't. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, you want Lewis to do a new deal for next year. You want him in the car next year. You want a cohesive team. You're promising him the car will be great. But was it going to be this great this quickly? Now, how could they have broken through so quickly? Are they turning up the engines and risking, overusing the equipment, which, as we all know, all of the key parts are lifed. You can only have so many engines, so many different components. Are they throwing caution to the wind by just pulling out all the stops and making the cars go as fast as they want? Is this a case where the W14 is on a kind of racetrack where it does
Yeah.
well? I mean, there are so many factors that play in.
Well, that's my question, which is, is it because of the cooler temperatures, which is what a lot of the pundits have been saying this weekend, and the fact that it's a low downforce circuit, you're at max speed or full throttle, 70% of it.
Full throttle. Yeah.
And the Mercedes somehow suits that. But when you listen to Toto Wolff's interviews after race 1 of the season in Bahrain, it was, we're going to have to rethink our 2023 car, and Hamilton was about to, pull his afro out.
They're going to have to redouble their efforts.
Yeah.
Well, there's one more question that I have is, where is George Russell starting on the grid? Is he on the dirty side? If he is, he's got a significant challenge to try to get away ahead of Max. On the other hand, Lewis will be starting behind Max wherever he starts. So it could get really tasty down there in turn 1.
All right. Well, we will talk more about that and more after this. You're listening to your Sunday Speed City, not your Sunday night, but your Speed City F1. On
Saturday,
SiriusXM.
Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday, Saturday, whatever it is.
Sunday.
We'll be back after this.
Have you got the volume?
All right, we're live on the YouTubes. Got a couple of comments going on here. Let's see.
I want to see. Yeah, where is the poll, kids?
Bob,
I
Mike,
think it's on the outside.
Mike says, I would donate a kidney to have you replace Crofty.
That's a great line.
Oh, I'd do it for a lot less than that.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that's dramatic stuff.
Yeah.
Joe of Oyster Bay says, George Russell is a force of nature. I think so.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
By the way, Bob, I think race line would be outside. So in other words, you're diving across the track from pole. So you're starting on the racing line, whereas if you're Russell, you're on the inside and you get squeezed out. That's how I would remember. I can't remember what the hell pole is, but that would be my guess.
Yeah, I can't either. Well, we'll find out in a half hour.
Yeah. Well, I'm I'm keeping one eye on ESPN as well, and in fact, Jensen Button and Ted Kravitz are walking the grid right now, so we should see the pole man pretty soon. And I'm pretty sure that I see Hamilton starting behind. Yeah, you're right.
Hey,
Hamilton's starting behind Verstappen, right?
I want to thank all the folks, especially on the stream right now. I mean, if they're listening on Sirius, they could be in the car, but there's so many options for people to be watching, and they're sitting here watching us. So
another
thanks,
option
everybody.
is just going to sleep.
That's true. a more reasonable option.
My dog has taken that option.
God invented the DVR.
Exactly.
James Vincent says Bob is Bob is the best in F1 announcers.
Boom.
Oh,
Get another haircut, Bob.
that's right.
He didn't say anything about the hair.
Why do we start? Why do we start a campaign?
Hello to everyone. This is Gunther Steiner. This is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
The Speed City F1 pre-race show on SiriusXM is brought to you by CrowdStrike. Stop today's most sophisticated cyber attacks at the office, the racetrack, and everywhere in between. Learn more at crowdstrike.com/XM. Don't forget the /XM. Speaking of Gunther Steiner, I got to speak with Mr. Steiner here in Austin last weekend, Johnny, while you were
I love it.
not here. That was fun. And
did he enjoy it?
I talked to him right before he was going to go on race coverage, and he had his family here. He lives in North Carolina.
Well, yeah.
So, it's a natural.
He lives literally in NASCAR land. I mean, Charlotte.
That's
he's
what
right
he came
there.
over here for. He reminded me of that.
Mm-hmm.
He ran a Red Bull stock car team for about 4 years.
And he also reminded me that the Haas F1 team probably wouldn't have happened. It was basically his idea, I think, that he approached Gene about it. So that was cool. All right, hey, we got a few clips that I want to play.
Okay.
Because, let's see, let's just start at the top, because Max Verstappen, we think everything is all hunky-dory with him, but there's a little stuff going on with Red Bull. So let's hear what Max had to say.
Just tough to understand the tires, to get the best out of it, because the warm-up is very tricky around here. But yeah, I think at the end we did a good job, so I'm happy with that.
You obviously haven't got Checo right near. You've got 2 Mercedes behind you. How much of a challenge do you think that's going to be tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I think for tomorrow we have a quick race car, I'm sure. But again, like I said before, with the tarmac it's a bit difficult to understand, what the tires are going to do. But nevertheless, I think what is important is a good start, and from there onwards, I think we normally are a bit more competitive in the race and qualifying.
Okay, so thank you.
Jonathan, you had a look in your eye when you were listening to Max.
I was actually falling asleep, but
no.
The look in my eye was he confirmed 2 things there. The start is imperative, and what I just described for Mercedes, he knows too, and knows he has to make a phenomenal start because he's got both Mercedes right there and Alonso. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yep.
and he wants them to be fighting each other and let him, if he can get to that first corner, he's gone. Because, as Scott Russell used to say, hey, gone.
Hey, gone.
But he's got to do that. And the second was the tyres are definitely across the board here in Australia because of the cooler temperatures, definitely not, getting up to temperature like they want to. And he said, we're not so sure in these conditions about the tyres. And, you can say a lot by not saying much. And I think he said a lot there.
Hey, I do want to mention something. Bob, you got through the full grid without being interrupted by Chris Medland. And I just want to let everybody know Chris is not going to be with us this evening. Unfortunately, he is taking the race off. So in case you're wondering where he is.
He did what?
He's
Well, I told
Hey.
him. I warned him.
terrible.
You keep interrupting me, and you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, well done, Bob. Good decision, Bob. Good executive decision. I'm glad we had that meeting.
nicely played, Bob.
Useless bloody Englishman out there on the grid.
Shut
We
your
love
mouth.
you. Thank you. We love you, Chris.
Oh, that is great. Yeah, Chris, look, 23 races. He deserves a couple of them off. So
Yeah, I
that's
think so.
why. But,
Yeah.
we have a couple of more clips. Speaking of George Russell, let's hear from George Russell if Casey is ready for that one. Let's do it.
Yeah, the 3 qualifying sessions this year have been pretty well maximised, but the performance has just been getting better and better, and we haven't brought any upgrades to the car. I think it's just a matter of the fact of the team doing a great job to maximise the setup, to maximise the beast we've got at hand, and to be lining up P2 and P3 is a pretty exceptional result for us. So bring on tomorrow.
So what do you think you can do with the beast tomorrow?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think there's no reason why we can't fight for P2 and P3. I think starting in that position, that should be a minimum. I think if we manage to get ahead of Max into turn 1, maybe we can hold him off, but I think they've got so much pace, they can do whatever they want, and if he's leading after turn 1, there'll be nothing we can do.
All right, well, good luck.
Thank you.
He was.
Yeah, call a meeting. The meeting is this. The overhaul is cancelled for now. Okay?
But they were all reading from. Go ahead, Bob. Go ahead.
Well, he said something interesting there to my ear anyway. He says, we haven't brought any updates to the car.
Yeah.
I would find that astonishing given this big step up in performance.
Yeah, it does seem kind of weird, doesn't it?
They're all reading from that
Yeah.
same playbook. They all had almost the same words. There are no upgrades. I can't remember what they were. They were saying there are no upgrades. And I'm like, George, at one point,
if you
in
speak
another
to
one,
the press, tell them we're useless.
Yeah. George said in another one, you could almost not even call it an upgrade, what we did.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe there's.
Actually, in another interview, he said that he was almost disappointed he wasn't pole. It was such a perfect lap. And he really thought after the first sector, he was onto something.
Okay, well, let's continue with these clips because these are post-quali clips. And continuing down the grid, we have Lewis Hamilton talking about his post-quali.
Oh man, it felt so good to that 1 second where I was pole. It was a great lap, and then I saw obviously Max equal the lap or whatever, and then my last lap just wasn't able to extract more. I was hoping for better, but it wasn't meant to be. But still, to be in the top 3 is absolutely fantastic, and I hope that tomorrow I can do I've not done a long run on the tyres yet, so tomorrow will be the first time doing it.
You've talked about how much you're pushing, how much the team is pushing. It must be really encouraging to see the team have made a step forward, and you must be excited about the possibilities tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely really excited for the possibilities, and I really hope there's some advantage being on the clean side of the grid maybe, and then it's just how we use our tyres. I hope we can hold on magically to the Red Bulls. I don't think that's going to be possible, but we will see.
He was super chill, wasn't he?
Yeah, and a completely different guy that was going to leave the sport 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, he was so down after Eddie. But
why were you going to ask? You were asking
if
we had Horner.
Well, because Horner said something interesting on TV on F1 Pro, which was that.
Are they paying you to say that so often?
F1 Pro?
F1 Pro TV. I'm not getting a cut of that.
It's very good.
I'm with Jonathan. Yeah, it really is good.
No, it is
and
good.
It's like, what, $80 for a year? You get all the sessions, all the timings, their own staff of writers with inside.
You're both getting paid, and I'm
really
not getting
worth
anything.
Yeah, and you just negotiate. No. Yeah, shove it, everybody! But no, exactly. What he said was that they are the only team with 2 sets of hard tires, and my little Labrador ears pricked up at that point and went, that's a point, because the hard tires, we learnt this in F2, seemingly are the choice in these cooler conditions if you can get them up to temperature.
Right. You also heard him say, I'll be starting on the clean side of the track. So the pole sitter and all the odd-numbered starters will be on the clean side. George Russell, you need a jet-assisted takeoff from the dirty side of the track.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, it is hard.
And
Okay.
Don't get run over by Alonso.
And
All right.
Don't
nice
hit a bird.
segue. Nice segue, Bob, because that is the next post-qualifying clip that we have is Fernando Alonso.
I feel good. Obviously, it was very tight. Within 1 or 2 tenths, there were a lot of cars, and we were on the upper part of that group in Q1 and Q2. I think I was P2. And then in Q3, with a couple of hundreds, we missed the first row of the grid. But the Mercedes did a very good job in qualifying in Q3. So, still, I think probably the best qualifying of the 3 for us. I think we were 0.6 in Bahrain, 0.5 in Jeddah, and here 0.4 from pole position. So I think we have to be happy, and let's see tomorrow what we can do.
I know you're always good around here, at least from my memory anyway. Are you feeling happy and excited about tomorrow with the car that you've got?
Yeah, I feel confident. I feel positive about tomorrow. Our strength, I think, is still the long run pace. So, yeah, we start in the first 2 rows of the grid, and our strengths are on Sundays. Let's use it.
Great.
It just seems normal now that Alonso's fighting for podiums now, doesn't it?
Again, I'm going to bring Bob in, but in the years I've covered Formula One, I've never seen a better mix, not even in the Schumacher years, of brilliance in Hamilton and Alonso, and then the youth of the Russells and Verstappens, and all the way down the grid to Gasly and to Magnussen and now to Hülkenberg. I really can't remember an era where there's been so many good drivers, and even the likes of Albon and Tsunoda, are paying their way and deserve to be there. I looked at that F2 field, and everybody's talking about Pourchaire, and I look at Piastri coming in. It's like, good gosh, hard luck, mate. You've come in when the Rolling Stones, the Rolling Stones and the Beatles are on before you. Knock it out. Go for it.
You just mentioned Albon, Williams, 8th, qualifying 8th.
They were last year. They
were the last few years.
Gosh,
mostly. I mean, this is fantastic. I mean, and I'm so excited that Logan Sargent has come into a team that's got some chops now. It's, he's not just going to come in there and be invisible back there. No. All right, speaking of Williams, we have another clip, and we've got, yes, sir, number 8, Alexander Albon. Let's hear from him.
Yes, adrenaline's still going a bit, so no, really, really happy. We were good all weekend, and in Jeddah we couldn't get the tyres to work, and this weekend we could. So tyres are everything, and when it's working, it feels so good. Today was one of them days, and it's an amazing job. We're for the team, for everyone. That's that's really special. You know, we're only a few tenths off the Ferraris. It's exciting.
It's huge, really. And for tomorrow, I know no one's had real much long running, but you still must be optimistic that where you're starting, anything's possible.
Exactly. You know, points are in the on the cards. I think I'm not going to get much sleep tonight. Better focus on tomorrow, but very excited.
Great stuff. Have fun. Thanks.
You can absolutely hear the smile when he's talking, can't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's been frustrating times for those guys. And Albon's another example of what Jonathan was just talking about. The depth of driving talent is so great. And we've never had as many good drivers in good cars. Now, somebody's got to be first, somebody's got to be last. And the Williams team really has suffered recently, but they're not that far off. And with a guy, the quality of Albon, remember, he was handpicked by the Red Bull organization, thinking he was going to have a place in one of the cars that Max and Sergio are driving right now. Yeah, he's the real deal. And if Williams can get their act together, he'll do some damage.
All right, coming up after this, we're going to talk about the Haas F1 team and the McLaren team and a little bit about the AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo. You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM. Back after this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's no question that the depth of field, I mean, it goes with what we were saying about the teams. You know, who's the worst team in Formula One right now? It's really hard to say. But you're right, the quality of drivers and their ability to hit their marks. I mean, Q1, I think there was less than a tenth between, I can't remember, I think it was like the top 10 or something ridiculous like that. But it was so close.
We got a few comments on the YouTubes. Derek says, this is why I subscribe to SiriusXM. Wow. Derek, write a letter. Tell him. Kevin Kelly says, Buxton says none of the teams really know how the tires are going to react today.
Yeah, that's the truth. Yeah. The weather is the real key factor here. They haven't done the long runs that they usually would.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
T&W says...
The tires for everything.
Yep. T&W says, I'm late, but I had to get here. I had to get some Tito's. Okay, that's a good excuse.
Oh, wow. Easy sharing?
I don't know how you can do that over the YouTubes.
You've used that one.
Tito's or Cheetos?
Cheetos and Tito's. There's a night. What are you doing tonight? Me, a little Tito's and
Cheetos.
I might do some Chipotle later. I'm just throwing them out there. Did you notice Haas had got that on the side of the car?
Chipotle?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see that.
And I also noticed that ESPN were doing adverts. So is that an F1 deal?
I don't know. I thought it was just a Haas deal, but it could be.
Well, there was an ESPN Chipotle advert in the last break.
Man, that CrowdStrike car looks good, doesn't it?
Oh, good stuff. I like it. I see what you did there. Yes, and by my Tag Heuer watch, it's almost time for racing.
Yeah, it is. Man, we had so many good stories. Before we come back, let me take a look and see which ones we had. Here we go.
Hi, this is Karun Chandok, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Still all right for fighting.
It'll work. All right.
I said
Eric Johnson in town
it's already
tonight.
Sunday for Bob.
Eric Johnson's in town tonight.
I saw Eric Johnson in like 1980-something.
Hasn't aged a bit.
Good for him. All right, I said we're going to talk Haas. Before we get into how they're doing, I wanted to ask you a question. I think you spotted it in my show notes. But had you been Gene Haas and Gunther Steiner?
No.
Okay, let me finish the question.
I don't know what the question is.
Because there was a discussion. Somebody was talking
why
about
don't you
Daniel
throw
Ricciardo.
it at both me and Bob?
Yeah. Okay, so they were talking about Daniel Ricciardo because it's Australia, right? And they were saying, he could have been racing this year. He could have been in some place like Haas or whatever. And I went, you know what? I would like to. I'll ask both of you guys. Bob, would you have taken, if you were Gene and Gunther, would you have taken Daniel Ricciardo over Hülkenberg, not knowing what you know today, how good he's done so far this year?
No, because I think Danny Ricciardo when he left McLaren 1 year short of the expiry of his contract, I think he was really damaged goods. And I mean, in his head, for all of the smiles and, one of the most popular guys in the sport, I think he was really questioning himself. And I don't think a team like Haas, who were looking to take a step up, would do well with the driver in that situation. Now, it may come good for Danny Ricciardo. I hope it does. But I think Hulkenberg has shown himself, even though he hadn't been in a car for a couple of years, showed that he was fit, that he still had all of his skills that have brought him so many victories in other forms of the sport. No, I think they made the right choice with Hulkenberg.
I'm going to channel my inner Dave O'Neill and go, no, his head had gone. His head had gone. He needed a holiday.
That is extremely weird that you just brought O'Neill up, because I had my phone in my hand because he just texted me.
What did he say? Did he agree?
Well, I'll say this, and Casey will have to edit this for that goes out on the local show.
In other words, I'm with Bob on this. I'm with Bob on this.
No, yeah, I agree. And you brought up before
his
we went
head
on
had
air.
gone, and it's an expression that most people like Dave O'Neill use in motor racing. When your head's gone, you just need to go away and not come back until it's back.
I asked Dave to come on the show tonight, but he said, "Sorry, been up to my tits the last few days."
Up to me tits, mate.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
So yeah, he he couldn't make it. I said,
he's a London boy.
I said, no worry.
Why would you do that?
Why would you do that?
I said, how's the Mercedes?
I can't
out in
get that
California?
image out of my head now.
But I bet you, text him now and say,
Here, I'll
ask him the question. We'll carry on, but we'll get the answer. And then it'll be official.
Hey, Dave, the question on tonight's show is, would you have taken Daniel Ricciardo or Hulkenberg had you been Gene or Gunther?
There's nothing like a national radio show to do a text, voice text.
Yeah, so I just voice texted him. We'll see what he says.
Rocking show. Anyway, we are 9 minutes away from the Australian Grand Prix.
All right, well, let's talk about Hulkenberg. How about that Q2? Fantastic.
He out qualified both Ferraris. If that rain had come like I was praying it would, what a story.
Yes, unbelievable.
Gunter would have, I reckon, hugged a lot of the paddock, if not all.
Yes. Well, we have the man himself. We have Mr. Hulkenberg. Let's hear what he had to say about it. Hold on. We got it.
He's very shy.
Hold on. We got him, but
It's a developing story.
Casey's struggling with that one. We'll see if we can get it to
I
download.
quite like late nights. It's just...
Here we go.
Yeah, positive day, positive quality, definitely. Especially Q2 was obviously very good. Q3, I had only one new tire. I believe some others had maybe two. But anyways, it was not quite there. I didn't quite reproduce or wasn't able to reproduce the lap of Q2. But nevertheless, another top 10 finish, as you say. So pretty positive. We'll take that into tomorrow, and I'm pretty confident and feeling good also about going to the race.
Yeah, I was going to say, because it's tough to overtake around here, and the car has been decent in Saudi on race pace, so that must give you a lot of confidence.
Yeah, it does. I think the track is pretty similar, the characteristic, the speeds. So. Similar feelings, and therefore also similar expectations in Saudi. We saw that we are competitive and that we definitely can race for points. So we'll push for that tomorrow.
Awesome.
He sounded plenty upbeat, didn't he?
Oh, completely. And, again, another subject, what I love about this mix again is it's also the year of the comeback kids. You've got 4 Red Bull drivers, if you include Albon and Gasly. And now you've got the perennial comeback kid in Hulkenberg. And so second chances, which never used to really exist in Formula One, are proving brilliant decision-making for some of the teams.
Hey, Bob, Varsha, what do you think about Hulkenberg? What do you think about K-Mag with this pressure from Hulkenberg? I mean, he seems to have, been affected by it. Or is it just the fact that the times are so tight now that one little mistake and he just hasn't put it all perfect in these first 2 or 3 races here?
I think that's part of it. As I said, I think Hulkenberg came back to make a point. He came back as fit as he could make himself. He came back ready to drive, ready to be aggressive in the car. Yeah. And it was a perfect thing for him to do, get in with a team that isn't doing terribly well, so everybody can blame the car if you don't have the greatest of results. As far as K-Mag goes, I really am struggling to figure out what's going on with Kevin. He's a much better driver than his results have shown, and there's no reason that if the Hulk can drag that Haas up into the top 10, there's no reason why Kevin Magnussen shouldn't be able to. And I'm just kind of at a loss as to explain why, unless there's something wrong with the car, much as Sergio Perez says something is wrong with the Red Bull, and Lewis Hamilton says something is wrong with the Mercedes W14. I don't know. I'm really surprised that K-Mag is not able to stay right there with Hulkenberg.
He's got a lot of equity in the team right now, John. He's the team's first ever pole last year, and he's done. It's amazing last year, right? So
yeah, I can't. It is actually one of those strange situations because you'd expect that K-Mag would just thrive on the opportunity. I mean, another side of this is, we got a shot of Mick Schumacher in the Mercedes, pit when they did so well today, but it shows that an up-and-coming team that needs good drivers to move forward, Mick was not the right choice, even though it was the choice of Ferrari, their engine manufacturer. I don't think that was a wise decision because the team were hampered, and K-Mag helped Schumacher a lot, but they need two good drivers to move this team forward, and you can see it's happening. Hulkenberg has made actually two bad starts so far, and Gunter was interviewed saying that they hope they've adjusted the car for his starts, and he really, you heard in that interview, he thinks he can score points, and that's great for an American team.
Fantastic. I mean, hey, this is it's so tight in this midfield, whatever you want to call this, everything beyond the top 2 or 3, that it's going to be so much fun to watch. Because Williams right now, they're destined for some points today, and if they a point or two, and they shuffle the whole bottom of the Constructors' Championship. So it's going to be fun to watch. All right, we're down to about 3 minutes. Let's get our predictions in and go from there. Jonathan, you want to start?
Verstappen, Alonso, Russell.
Okay, I like that. That's reasonable. Mr. Varsha.
Verstappen, Alonso, Hamilton.
Whoa.
Okay, I got to pick something else. So I'm going to say Russell, Hamilton, Alonso, because I think the only way that could happen is if Verstappen had some sort of reliability issue. So I'm going to go with that just because I got nothing left after y'all took with the only other obvious options.
You could pick away.
I'm going to say you could have gone first. You can
No,
pick the same.
no, I got to pick that. I got to pick something other than you guys. All right, we got 2 minutes left. Jonathan, you said something in here in your notes.
Uh-oh.
You said 1998 Checo?
Yeah, and Bob will laugh when I say to this because Coulthard. I was listening to Coulthard. Did Checo make a mistake when he got out of the car at turn 3 and left it? Because Darren Heath got a very good photograph of a couple of pedals that McLaren were using surreptitiously and no one knew about it. But when you leave your car there open to the public, I
remember this.
And they had used a second brake pedal to balance out the car in the rear. In an understeer, because you set a car up kind of for understeer, they were saying, and it was Steve Nichols from McLaren who did it, and it was eventually banned because the other teams just couldn't fathom how to work it out. But the point is, your secrets are often under the car, or at least in places where once it's lifted, you can sit. Now I don't know what Checo was going to do, fight him with his helmet, but I did find it funny that Checo left the car to go back to the pits.
All right. Well, we are down to about a minute left here in our show. Of course, you can stick right here on SiriusXM ESPN channel 81 to listen to the race. But also, I just want to make sure that everybody knows we are going to have our post-race show. No matter what the hour may be, we will be here for.
It could be quiet.
Yes, it could be. But thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And don't forget that you can always go to our website, speedcitybroadcast.com, and find out all of our shows, where to listen, because we have the show that Chris Medlin and I do on Wednesdays on the same channel, ESPN Extra 81. And we also have our Sunday night show that is regardless of Formula One. We do it every Sunday night here in Austin, and you can find all of that information on our website, speedcitybroadcast.com. And that is it. We're going to let you guys go and join us after the race.